Hello, I am an unidentified voice, and I'm going to do a study guide for Kate Atkinson's Behind the Scenes at the Museum for A level. Brace yourselves, it's going to be amazing. Chapter 1 Conception, 1951. This chapter is about Ruby's conception and the events of the day she's conceived. Bunty takes her children to the park, Gillian has a tantrum, and then she goes shopping and meets Walter the butcher. At the end, she discovers she is pregnant, emitting a monk-like scream. Characterization. Bunty's portrayal as a cold, emotionless mother begins here, and her behaviour throughout the chapter, specifically her treatment towards Gillian in the park and reaction to her pregnancy, shows the traits of cold, emotionless mothering that will continue throughout the novel. The conception has left Bunty feeling irritable, an emotion with which he is very comfortable. George is portrayed as a very neglectful husband, going out to have a riotous night on the tiles with various women and saying "mind the shop, Bunt" when he leaves. He is also portrayed as something of a brute, having sex with his wife despite the fact she pretends to be asleep and conceiving his daughter. Right from the start, Gillian is portrayed as a theatrical and troublesome child. She does not want to be ignored, and she is not that kind of child. Her tantrum, while it is common for children that age, nevertheless foreshadows what she'll be like her entire life, although at the age of 11, she is no longer like that, as she is dead. Poor Gillian. Patricia is shown to be very dark and melodramatic, as well as highly interested in academia. She is also shown to be somewhat of a social outcast, and Atkinson says she is only 5 and already an outcast. Nell's character is explored in far more depth in the chapter Still Lives, but here we get a glimpse of her personality, similar to Bunty. Atkinson describes her as being defined by her relationship with other people. And finally we have Ruby, the paradoxical protagonist. Ruby is shown to be a witty, articulate girl who mocks those around her, saying of her dad, "I'm begun on the first stroke and finished on the last," obviously mocking his sexual prowess, despite the fact she has not yet been born, and she also has delusions of grandeur, describing her and Chekhov in the same sentence. Here she is seemingly omniscient, describing future events, the feelings of those around her, and their dreams, and a vast swathe of pop culture references and historical allusions, despite the fact she is only a fetus. In this chapter, Conception, she is possibly more omniscient than in any other chapter, which is, once again, a paradox. Literary techniques. Postmodernism. Like Thomas Pynchon, David Foster Wallace, and Vladimir Nabokov, among others, Kate Atkinson is a postmodern novelist, and this, her first novel, has many of its features. Intertextuality is one of postmodernism's key features, and Atkinson begins the novel with a reference to the life and opinions of Tristram Shandy, gentleman, as, like Behind the Scenes at the Museum, it also begins before the birth of the main character. There are numerous others, for example the line, "just as well she didn't go to Kansas," referencing Bunty's doomed relationship with the Kansas American, and also the Wizard of Oz film and the hurricane there. "Toto, we're not in Kansas anymore." Also Ruby's recitation of "There's no place like home" within Bunty's womb. Behind the Scenes at the Museum also contains footnotes, which is very postmodern, as normally footnotes are in reference books and factual texts, not in novels. Atkinson also breaks some of the rules of normal storytelling, as she tells us that Gillian dies by being hit by a Hillman Husky, which does not actually happen until chapter 6. Not much of a future as it turned out, as she gets run over by a pale blue Hillman Husky in 1959, but how are any of us to know this? As she does throughout, Atkinson comments on the novel's status as a work of fiction, saying, "Who is to say which is real and which a fiction?" Magical realism is also a frequent feature of postmodernism, and although it is more frequently in other chapters such as Still Lives and Country Idyll, it briefly appears here, as Ruby describes the household ghosts. There has been a building on this spot since the Romans were here, and needless to say, has its due portions of lightest air occupants who wreathe themselves around the fixtures, and fittings and linger mournfully at our backs. Ghost! And finally, paradox. As I said previously, it's paradoxical that Ruby can know so much about different things, such as mentioning Bunty enduring sex, when she has not even been born and is still an embryo. She knows so much about her life, the future and past, culture and the lives of others, that she's practically godlike, despite her status as an unborn child. Foreshadowing. Possibly the chief plot point of the entire novel is the mystery of Pearl, Ruby's long-lost sister, who she doesn't even know exists. While Pearl is not revealed to exist until chapter 11, Atkinson drops many hints throughout the novel. Starting here. Am I being haunted by my own embryonic ghost? Surprise! I have another sister. This ties into the novel's frequent elements of detective fiction, in which Atkinson drops hints and expects the reader to pick them up. For example, Bernard Belling will play a significant role in the future. Themes of the novel. George and Bunty are described as living within a seething kingdom as two rival contenders for the crown, which begins the novel's recurring theme of unhappiness within marriage, particularly marriage for convenience. Many female characters throughout the novel fall prey to this, although a couple, for example Patricia and Lillian, escape. My poor mother's very disappointed with marriage. It's failed to change her life in any way, except for making it worse. On the second page of the novel, Ruby describes the many historical events that have happened in her home city of York. This is important as Atkinson said it is York, not Ruby, that's the novel's true protagonist. The title is derived from the Castle Museum, full of old artefacts from York's history, and links the artefacts from Ruby's own family history, such as the already mentioned clock owned by Ruby's great-grandmother, Alice. Ruby says, the future is a cupboard full of light, and all you have to do is find the key that opens the door. Whereas at the end she says the same thing about the past. So in a way, the novel is not just obsessed with history, but time as well. Ruby is presented throughout the novel as quite a deluded character, blocking the memory of Pearl from her mind, finding refuge in religion and her ye olde character when in emotional distress. The line, I want a mother who dreams different dreams, reflects this. Reflects a Ruby who wants change despite the inevitability of the present. The line, the dawn chorus is heralding my own arrival, shows, despite the humour in the line, a character who believes too much in her own significance and who will only be happy when she learns to accept reality in chapter 11. The similar theme of real versus artificial also connects to this, as throughout the novel, many characters use a bright artificial smile, with Bunty being the first in this chapter. While more of a recurring motive than a theme, mystery is frequent throughout the novel. While a fairly harmless mystery, the naming of the shop as Shop is one of the many long unexplained things that happen. Some, such as Alice's disappearance and the existence of Pearl, are resolved, while some, such as what happened to Patricia's baby, are left unexplained. Links to Great Expectations. Like Ruby, Pip has a female guardian who is cruel and neglectful to her, and who is stuck in an unhappy marriage. However, Mrs. Joe is far more cruel than Bunty, actually using physical violence against Pip. And unlike Joe, George is also neglectful, and possibly as bad as Bunty. Links to The Wife of Bath's Tale. Like Bunty, the Wife of Bath believes that all men are beasts and has misandrous tendencies. Bunty says this about Walter the Butcher, whereas the Wife of Bath pretty much says it about all men. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it wasn't too cheesy, and I do apologise for my robotic delivery. It's very difficult to read things without making a mistake unless you do a completely emotionless voice.